Hello, space fans. This is Greg Allison. This is the 25th anniversary of the High Altitude Research Corporation's HARC Catch Prize launch. This was a very momentous day in my life, something we'd built up to for a long time, and I was stranded at sea while my team was on the ship trying to launch a balloon-launched rocket, what you call a Rockoon. So I'm going to show you some video here in just a second of this launch attempt. So hang on, guys. I will do a share screen and we will get to it. And here it is. I am going to open it up a little bit and play it. Well, there's the play button at. Wrong video. Hang on, that's one of them, but that's not the one I want to play first. Hang on. Wanted to do that. Here we are. I got the sound turned off so you don't hear my voice. There it is, taking off. That is a HARC Catch Prize rocket being lofted by a balloon from which it will be launched at about approximately 80,000 feet. Now there are some sound in this video. You can see it floating away. Yeah, the video is grainy. This is 25 years ago, my friends. So hang on, let's stop it here. I am going to go in and do some sound adjustments so that I can play this with sound and not have this video sound overlap it. Give me just a second. Sometimes I got to make extra changes here. Let's do this again. Oh, no, I got to put it back to the right screen. We ain't got so many screens to juggle. All right, here we go one more time. This is the, here we are. We'll start it from the beginning. So you can hear the crew talking. Hope it doesn't drop now. That was Bill Brown said, hope it don't drop now. It was directly overhead. We'd had an experience launching a Martian aerobot previously for the Jet Propulsion Laboratory on a ship known as the C. Michael Calais, and it inflated, and once it got stood up on the boat and was ready to release, we had the payload right overhead, and the top knot on the balloon opened up and it fell. It almost hit one of our guys, Chase Reniger. He barely got out of the way in time. I don't know, maybe somebody pushed him. But that was a very interesting little experience. That's why that was Bill Brown talking. I've done some videos with him on this channel in the past. So let's take it from the beginning. I do believe this is Glenn May here. He passed away in the Spaceship 2 cold flow motor test. It took out 3 people. It doesn't drop now. I wish it wasn't so grainy and wobbly. This is filmed on videotape, not digitally. Well, not CCD. All right, here's the next video. This is the HARC Catch Prize launch itself. This is the balloon at altitude. The balloon is fully inflated here, and this is the gondola that went up in, and you're about to see it fire. We had all this data downlinked over a visual overlay. See it firing right there. And it went off to the left side of the screen. Unfortunately, there's something left here in the gondola. I'll explain that in a minute. There it went. That's not the way it was intended to go. Wait a minute. That's just foam laying in the gondola. Interesting. When it came back down, it was reporting data, but unfortunately, somewhere in the flight, we thought it was in the gondola. Oop, that's something different. Stop that. We don't want that. Hey, I included that in a thumbnail in one of my videos. That is, I did a rendition as a thumbnail on my videos on Green Greg's channel. That's Stanford University. Yikes. No, I've been there, but that ain't what I was trying to show. So let's stop this share and look at a PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to tell the story. I'm going to tell why was I lost at sea while this was going on and what happened here. Oh, by the way, those of you that don't know, this is the fuel grain to that rocket, the fuel grain part, the solid motor part. It also had a liquid oxidizer tank, which was the big part. Actually, this was a test motor that we fired. It's been outside here in the desert here for a few months. Got a bunch of the local red sand in it. But that was an actual fired rocket motor. That's the solid fuel grain from a hybrid motor. I had my own space program 25 years ago. I was the president of HAL 5 and the program manager for the HALO program that we started. We spun off a company called the High Altitude Research Corporation. We did a balloon launch return vehicle. We did balloon launch for JPL, and we've done some other. We did rocket motor testing and some other things, including that rocket motor. We did hundreds of rocket motor tests. We flew dozens and dozens of balloons, my friends. So when I talk about balloon flight, I know something about it. When I talk rockets, I know something about it. So trust me, this was interesting portion of my life, and we did this pretty intensely for 6 years. And this was the kind of culmination of that effort. We started this program back in 1994, the year after I chaired the 93 ISDC, and we applied the excess revenues to start the HALO program. And then we got an investor to back the HARC project. This was a very detailed project. We had to rent a ship. We had to buy the balloons. We had to do logistics. We actually had to file a launch waiver application with the FAA per the prize rules. Typically, before that, we only had to work with the range. We worked with the Eglin Air Force Base Range Scheduling Services, and my range schedule was Ray Sears. I'll talk about that in a minute. So, yeah, I've been there, done that. We did the logistics. We had to file the FCC to get permission to use all our radio frequencies. We used amateur radio frequencies, but we still had to have FCC approval. We had to get the range approval to use those radio frequencies out in the military test range. So there was a lot involved in that, my friends. So this was not a minor little go out in the desert and launch a rocket project. This is how I cook rockets. It's like my first greenhouse was 24 by 75 foot. You know, we're not used to doing small stuff. We're used to doing big things. You know, for a small group. So we actually our first Rockoon launch where we actually launched a rocket from a balloon was off the coast of North Carolina, Topsail Beach, on 11 April 1997. And we got the Guinness Book of World Records listing for that. I don't know if they got the date wrong, but it's listed in page 183 in case you get one of these copies. Most successful amateur rocket launch down here. So, yeah, we're here next to the Saturn V rocket and some other things. So, Millennium Edition, 2000 Millennium Edition of the Guinness Book of World Records. And there with all the other freaks with the long fingernails and mustaches and I don't know, people that probably swallowed the most golf balls. I don't know what they put in there, just crazy stuff. But I don't know about swallowing golf balls. Don't try it. That you wind up pushing daisies. Don't try that. Don't take that as an inspiration. Yeah, get his book. No, that's not worth it. You'll be pushing daisies on that one. I was just saying that facetiously. But anyway, there's a PowerPoint chart I'm going to have to pull up here, and I'll show you some pictures from that, maybe something from the website if I can find the right charts here. Make sure I pull them up. So let me do that. I got a lot of files open, so I have to manage that as I pull these things open and show them to you guys. So here we are. This was out of a presentation I made umpty-ump years ago. And this was on the deck, the Mr. Offshore. That was the name of the boat that we went out on this time. We rented it from a company. The captain of the ship was Captain Blackwell, I believe was his name. Hey, it's 25 years ago, so pardon me if I have a little trouble with some of these names. This would be Steve Mistakus standing here. Unfortunately, he has passed away, young man, cut short. We got a couple of guys. Well, a lot of our crew members are no longer with us. Let's put it that way. But anyway, so that was him. Let's see if I can step through this one slide at a time. Okay. I'm not hit presentation mode, so bear with me here. This was the rocket minus the avionics section. This was the rocket laid out. It was 17.5 feet long. We put oversized fins on the back so they could still have some control at an altitude of roughly 100,000 feet. That's the nozzle for the rocket. And what I was holding up was this piece right here. What I just held up was from here to here. This is the oxidizer tank, all the way up there, nitrous oxide. And so we had a D-spin module in here, and we carried a payload. The payload was supplied to us. We had to have a certain payload that was qualified by the Catch Prize Committee. So JP Aerospace, who wanted to shoot for this, actually donated us the payload they built to do this with. So salute to John Powell with JP Aerospace for that credit. Let's flip through here. And all righty, this is David Hewitt here back in those days. I think that's Chase Renator here, the guy who dodged getting hit in the head by the JPL Martian Aerobot flight package, barely. You see this boat here? What was in this phase? This boat was being towed. This was supposed to be the boat to recover the rocket in. It wound up being a boat I spent 24 hours on lost in sea. That's the story I'll get to in a little bit. 24 hours lost at sea on this boat. That's where I was at. I'll have to explain that in a few minutes. Let's see if we got another slide on here. Yep, there it is. Assembled, ready to go. Sitting on a box that we had transported the motor in. We transported several motors in that, but then we cut it in half and used it for a stage for this thing. This is the gondola. David Hewitt was in charge of building that. This is we had insulation on the oxidizer tank because we needed it to stay at 750 psi, and it's going to go up to about a region would be about 65 below zero. So you got to keep it warm. And this gondola was built as a greenhouse. You see the translucent plastic on it. That was to help keep it heated up because we didn't want it to lose pressure. So to get full thrust, we wanted to keep it 750 psi. The rocket motor ran, I think, at 450 psi. I probably got a, yeah, well, that's how much money we spent on it 25 years ago. Seriously, we did a major rocket program, rented a ship, and did several things 25 years ago. So to give you an idea, if I back it up here, that was the telemetry. We had 4 ground stations to track this thing. We came up with a way to use a GPS-initiated system to give us altitude and speed, which was supposed to be against the COCOM limits of the GPS. But you could get one of those waved, and then with the triangulation with a 1 pulse per second system using an oven-controlled oscillator, we were going to be able to totally watch the path of this thing. So we had 4 of these ground stations built up. I think 3 of them were actually deployed on the coast and various locations of Florida. And this was what we called an RDU. I think that was probably our decoder system. We had all our signals encoded so that somebody couldn't come in and hit the fire button before we were ready to launch. So just give you some ideas about that. That's a ground station on the boat. And this is our uplink avionics module that we uplink to. On each side of it, we had dual systems. There was redundancy. These were the actual ham radios that received the signal, all mil standard connectors, so we wouldn't get any EMI interference. Here was the junction block system for all the wiring. And these are Bella switches. This was one of our main safety devices, was a bellows switch. Nothing could activate on the rocket until the bellows switch actually made contact. The bellows switch were a set of bellows that had to expand to make contact between one side and the other to make a conductive path to send a command to fire the motor or any of the pyrotechnics on board. We had a problem with that once upon a time in the past. The bellows switch was actually set in an altitude chamber that we had set up, vacuum chamber. And so it would not fire unless it was above a safe altitude. That way we didn't have to worry about it, on the set of the rocket. So just give you some ideas. That's putting that is, we had a spin control system. We put in cold gas controls because we wanted to spin up for stabilization. There's some avionics we had on. We did all our own avionics boards. You didn't buy back now. You can get all this stuff in a cell phone. We didn't have that available 25 years ago. We designed our own avionics, and this became more of an avionics project than it was a rocket project because this was where the work really went. This was a huge challenge. The avionics were. It was very challenging. See, we had all these little boards in here. And that's the antennas. Gene Young designed these antennas. He was an RF expert from Marshall Space Flight Center back in the day. But there was no NASA involved in this. This was totally private venture. That's the nozzle, the nose cone. That's a depiction of the rocket. We actually lengthened it after that. This is the thrust profile of the rocket. This is the pressure in the chamber, about 400 psi. In the rocket motor chamber. This is the pressure fed, no, excuse me. Wait a minute. Pressure chamber. Thrust. That's the actual thrust generated here. That's the thrust curve. Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's about 1,400 pounds of thrust. So the pressure in the tank would have been this green line. Okay. Yeah, 750. That's the pressure in the tank right there. All right. So what chamber is that in? I guess that's the chamber in the front end. Alrighty, so this was our data logger that collected this data on our test. And this is a picture of a test. In fact, the engine being tested right there is this engine right here. This engine right here. We did about a 3-second burn, I believe it was. We got about 1,400 pounds of thrust. And you can see we had a portable test stand tied down. So when we run away, we had sandbags for protection. And that's how we fired this motor. Now, this motor held up fine in that test. And we'd had an earlier test where the motor came apart from the oxidizer tank, unfortunately. So that actually happened on flight, unfortunately. That's why it didn't get the full altitude. The threads between the motor and the oxidizer tank kind of went, zigzag. They should have been a step, like what you have inside the solid rocket motors, not the divert motors on the solid rocket booster for the space shuttle or the space launch system. But that's what we had. We tried. The plan was to put some RTV in there to give it a little extra hold. And the guys running up the ship, they forgot the RTV. I mean, logistics is a bear when you got to put everything you're going to fix things with and work on the boat. And that was one little detail that got left behind. So they crossed their fingers and hoped it would fly, and she came apart. So anyway, so that was the cheap access to space rocket. Just to show you the predecessor program was this is the balloon launch return vehicle. That little speck of blonde hair down there is me. And that went on to C. Michael Calais. That would be Mike Smith there. He was the chief engineer for what's Aerostar now, was Raven back then, the big balloon manufacturer. Yeah, we rented some big boats and took them out. This was our flight control system on board the C. Michael Calais. There's Bill Brown installing the high gain antenna. That's Gene Young installing the avionics into it. Gene has passed away. These were some subscale models we did test flights with. First with a bungee cord, bunch of launches. This is all done out at UAH, what was an open field back then. Now it's got housing in it. This was a rocket motor test fire up above Tony out in the field. This is the balloon launch return vehicle. Had a cold gas reaction control system to point the angle of the vector to fire it. That's Tim Pickens. Tim Pickens was really our rocket lead, and he was he had a business degree, and he was our rocket engineer. I had an engineering degree, and I wound up being our business manager, mostly kind of backwards. This was our test stand. This plaque here, the Halo HAL 5 plaque, was built by as a donation to us by Glenn May. That's Steve Mistakis sitting there at the controller out there at the test stand. This is the portable test stand. You've probably seen it in some of my Galactic Greg's videos. This was on my property for years, and I just sold it back to Tim Pickens. That's the test stand right there. Same one we tested this rocket motor at. Well, that was tested at an airfield right above where I used to live in Tony. Balloon launch return vehicle. Okay, I don't have the cat. Oh, this is a HARC presentation. That's why the Halo stuff's not in here. Looking for the Halo stuff. This is totally a HARC presentation here. Altitude Research Corporation. This is the stuff done under that banner. So let's go forward a little bit. I'll show you the balloon launch return vehicle. More on that. 25 years ago today, 29 October, year 2000, was when we did that launch. I should play the video again a little bit for the newcomers that are just coming in. I'm not going to present all the data in this chart, because this is more or less set up for us. That's the one, the payload right here, that almost fell on Chase Reniger. And that's the balloon that actually released at the top. There you got all the gores, plastic gores, come together into like a big spool at the top, and they're bound with like basically it's like a hose clamp on a radiator, something like that. A little better, but it was very analogous to that. So, you know, we're just showing. Oh yeah, there's our Halo stuff. Some of the things we've done. That's the Halo Ground Launch 1 rocket that I launched back in. This was done in 1996. What day was that? I used to have that day memorized. This is our Guinness Book Prize launch with the Halo SO1 rocket. And there I am. There's Steve Mistakis, Gene Hornbuckle. Who was that other Gene? Gene Young, yeah. There's Steve Mistakis. Yeah, there's Gene Young. Steve Mistakis is hiding. I can't remember his name. I talking about. It's Clay Lester. This guy's from New York. I can't remember his name right off the top of my head. It was 25 years ago, guys. 25 years ago. And we did all this for chump change, working out of garages. This is our, whoops. This is Gene Young's lab, avionics lab. This is on the deck of the Pearl River barge. You may have heard me mention this. That rocket is hanging today in Huntsville at the Straight to Ale Brewery. Anybody's in Huntsville, if you walk in the main doors and look up to the left, you'll find that rocket hanging there. And that would be Wright. What's his first name? Steve. Oh shoot, I'm getting Al Wright. It's Al Wright. Excuse me. Steve Mistakis now. Right? It's avionics for that package. Gene Young, mad scientist in his avionics lab. Yeah, we did a lot of crazy stuff. We had separate workshops for building avionics and rocket parts, because avionics don't like all the dust and contaminants. So, oh yeah, when we did this launch from Topsail Beach, guys, that was we had Comet Hale-Bopp overhead that night when we was working on this rocket. Comet Hale-Bopp. Now, 25 years after the moon landing, Comet Shoemaker Levy 9 struck Jupiter. Here we are 29 years after we did to the day after we did our, same way with the Hale-Bopp and Apollo 11, 25 years to the day. 25 years to the day after we did this HARC Catch Prize launch was when Comet 3I Atlas had its perihelion to the sun. Let's hope that puppy just keeps on trucking. Anyway, I just thought I'd show y'all that. I want to stop this share. And we'll go back to the video for those that are just joining, so you can see what this launch looked like. and then I'll tell my story. Or maybe I should tell my story first because other people will jump. That's what I'll do. I'll tell my story because some other people will be coming in, will want to see that video again. And who knows where I get the word video. I'm curious if y'all can figure that out. I think somebody guessed it once. All righty, so here's the deal. We were out there. We had to be able to, we had a, what I loved about going out in the Gulf of Mexico and working with Eglin Air Force Base. Now, we went out there a number of times. Eglin Air Force Base would give us 4 days to launch. And during that 4-day period, we actually got 2 4-hour launch windows. They shut down all the air traffic routes over that part of the Gulf of Mexico. But we had to, give a little space for the airline. So we had to take a break in the middle and, let a few airlines pass through, and then we could go at it again. So we had 2 4-hour windows to launch it in. On the 29th of October, well, we had a requirement, though. We had to call range and notify them exactly when we were going to launch. That was the requirement. We could not launch without their yay verily. And they would always yay verily. They just wanted to really know when we were going to do it. And they were real good to work with. So here it was. I had the first time when I was out for the launch to do the BLRV, we had I got a satellite phone that communicated to geosynchronous satellites. It was a laptop looking device. The top piece was a screen. It was an antenna, and I'd have to point it at the geosynchronous satellite, and it had to have a keyboard and a phone piece, but it looked like a laptop. But that thing was clunky. I had all kind of problems with it. I mean, it did work. So up comes this new satellite phone called Global Star. Now, Global Star wasn't like, it wasn't like, the satellite stuff. I'm talking to you through Starlink. You can get that everywhere now. Well, in the year 2000, it wasn't like that. There was Iridium and Global Star. Global Star was cheaper than Iridium. The phones were a little smaller, but they did have one catch. You couldn't go anywhere in the world with it. You had to be within range of a satellite that could see a ground station. They called it bent pipe. You had to be in range of a satellite that could be in range of a ground station. So they had published areas where you could do the job. The area that we were planning to do this launch in was well within the circle of coverage for Global Star. So, we think, okay, we're good. So, I am, being the finicky one out testing this thing every day, on our way out as we're going out, making sure she's still working. I'd go out and periodically test the satellite phone because I was the one who was going to call Ray Sears, my range controller. And I had his home phone number. Ray was very generous in working with us. Unfortunately, his wife passed away when I was out on one of these missions right prior to it. Ray's probably not with us. He was fairly elderly back then at 25. Maybe he is. I hope he is. Who knows? Maybe he'll get to watch this. I really like that man. Big, tall guy, but just as nice as he could be. Real nice guy. But anyway, he bent over backwards to help us. And he had another guy worked with him. Name started with Wool something or Wolf. I don't know. I think it's Wool something. I'm forgetting the whole name now. But it's been 25 years. But anyway, so we were going out into the Gulf of Mexico. And our objective was to get 200 miles out at sea and then to do the mission because we had to get as far out as we could because this thing had some reach. It had range. Technically, if it fired in the wrong direction, but everything went right in its maximum thrust, it could have hit Havana, Cuba. Not much chance of that, but it could have. So we had to calculate the probability of casualty of this thing, the east of sea, and it was, extremely low. It had to be less than 1 in a million, something like that. So we went out with this thing, and I'm testing this phone. And it kept working. It kept working. So the night before the launch, on the 28th of October, we assembled the crew in the mess hall of the ship, the Mr. Offshore, and I gave everybody a pep talk. Hey, this is going to be a great day, blah, 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 blah. Go to bed, get some good rest because tomorrow's going to be a hard day. So everybody went to bed except Bill Brown. Not Al, Bill Brown and myself. Bill Brown was my radio man. And I went outside right after that and tried to make a signal with the phone. Didn't work. But what? Trying to make a call, didn't work. Well, I thought maybe I'd go up a deck higher. Maybe I just don't have enough elevation to see the satellite that can see the ground station. Wouldn't work. I went on top of the wheelhouse where you really ain't supposed to go. I was up there trying to use a satellite phone. Wouldn't work. There's a little mast up. I climbed up that mast a little ways trying to use a satellite phone. She had no worky. Well, what? Maybe the range was off. Maybe the range was off. So I'm trying to key this thing, trying to get it to work. No, I tried it. I tried it for about an hour and a half. I go back in, Bill, this thing's not working. I said, can you guarantee me? And we had problems trying to get radios from ship to ground in the past. Bill told me on the that Halo SL2 mission that the radio should work due to skip, but it did not. Fortunately, we had some other means of communication back then. But so we were out here on this on the Mr. Offshore, started to say C. Michael Calais, and I said, Bill, can we get radio to ground? Because there was the shipwrecks. The guys on the ship said, we never been out this far. They said, we don't know. So they tried their radios and they weren't getting through. They were not getting through on their radios to shore. And Bill said, oh, well, I think it'll work. I think we'll get skip and it'll work. I said, Bill, can you assure me of that? He said, no. I said that I am going to try to head back towards shore to get authorization. That little boat had a comm that we should have been able to communicate to the main boat with. And so we got on the little boat, me and one other guy. Bill threw me a pack of peanuts and handed me a Dr. Mountain Dew. I thought I was just going to run out a short distance, make the call, get through to Ray Sears and come back. But before we got out of line of sight of the boat, you were required out there to have two engines at that distance out to motor around on these boats. One of the engines failed. The guy who was the captain of the little boat looked at me and says, "Do you want to press forward?" I said, "Everything we got hangs on this." I said, "We've got to do this mission. Everything hangs on it." So he said, "Okay." So we start pushing north. And the only way we could see, the guy was actually looking. He would lean out the window of the boat because we were sitting in front of this boat, and we were hitting chop, and the boat was like, I don't know, 30 foot long, 20 foot long, I don't remember, but we were sitting in basically the wheelhouse up front on the bow, and when we hit these waves, it would throw me up in the air, and then the boat would fall down, and then it would be coming back up before I could hit seats. It was like this. It was like riding a bucking bronco because we were going fast as we go when we had the two engines running. And when we lost one engine, it wasn't quite as hard to ride. But there's all this spray on the front windshield in order to see the North Star. He was guided by the North Star. He would actually lean out one side and we'd zig one way, and then he'd lean out the other side and zag the other way. We zigzag north, chasing the North Star. You couldn't see the compass, or the compass wasn't working or something. Maybe didn't have one. I don't know, but he used the North Star for navigation. And I'm trying to make these phone calls. So I actually went out on the back deck of this boat. I'm hanging on to a post at the rear of the boat trying to make phone calls. And I'm thinking, man, if I fall, and I'm watching all the fluorescence from all the little jellyfish or whatever, the wake of the boat when they fluoresce. I'm watching these things fluoresce. And I'm out here trying to make phone calls, not getting through. And I'm hanging on this post as this ship's doing this. And I'm thinking, man, if I fall off, he's so busy watching North Star, he ain't going to know where. That'd be all she wrote. If I fall off, I'm done. I'm risking my life out here. And so we get a good ways north, a really good ways. We actually lost radio contact with the main ship. Then the next engine quit. Suddenly, we ain't got no way home. We're floating, drifting. Lost at sea. We didn't even know where we was at, actually. We just knew we were somewhere north of where we started from. That's about all we knew. And with all the zigging and zagging, how far off course we went was anybody's guess. We just knew we were north. Actually, we were pretty close to true north. We didn't know it at the time. But here we are, just bobbing around in the ocean. And it was hot in the Gulf of Mexico, and as the sun rose on the 29th of October, we're out there floating around, and all I had was, like I said, what you don't need, a soft drink That ain't gonna kill thirst. And peanuts, salty peanuts. Like that was really going to help. So we're out there bobbing around, and sometime I go sit on the wheel, well, and the so-called boat captain and the little captain. The main boat captain was on the big boat, black wheel. But this guy, I don't remember his name, some red-headed guy. He was he was trying to fix the engine. He'd try to fix one engine, couldn't fix it. He'd try to fix the other engine, couldn't fix it. He tried over and over and over to fix his engines, no avail. And we'd try to radio, nothing. Floating, no radio. We watched some boat go by and we waved at him, and it just kept going. Like somebody on board leaning over the side waved at us and just kept going. I thought, man, how long are we going to be out here? And, I was getting thirsty. It was hot. We were sweating. And I didn't have any water. Man, that seawater was looking pretty good, but I knew if I drank that, that would be all she wrote. So we were out there just bobbing in the water, a hot day. And in the Gulf of Mexico, it gets hot. And it was hot. We were sweating. Fortunately, there's a little canopy on the boat. We could get away from the sun, except for where the motors were. And I'd hung on the back of that canopy when we was tracking north, whatever. So eventually, we got through on the radio. The skip or something lined in. Suddenly, we got a radio comm from the boat, and the guys were calling, wanting to know what to do. They had an issue with the lack of the RTV or something. No, it was the cutters. There was an issue with the cutters, and they called me to make a decision about what to do with it. They didn't tell me about the RTV. I thought we had it. No, we didn't. They didn't tell me that. So we had an issue with the cutters. So the guys asked me, I forgot what the exact technical issue was. They asked me what to do. Could you do this? Could you do that? And I said, yes, proceed to launch. We've got to do this. And so, we made a decision what to do with the cutters. We did, because the ship actually then got radio also. The stupid global phone star thing wasn't working, still wasn't working. We got through the ship in the morning, got comms to shore. I told Bill Brown before I left, I said, look, if something happens, you still keep calling. You try to get to shore. I gave him all Ray Sears contact. He got launch approved from Ray Sears to go for the Ekman, because they ran into problems that morning trying to deal with that cutter. It didn't fit. That's what it was. The darn thing didn't fit. We spent one of the most expensive things we bought was a ballistic cutter. We'd built our own for the Halo program, but we had problems with later on replicating our powder that we used to drive the guillotine cutter to cut the reefer lines. And so this is what we was going to use to bring the balloon down. So I told the guys to basically jam the thing in there to smooth board out, because we had engineering drawings sent to both sides, and they gave us two parts that didn't fit, and we didn't pre-integrate test them. So it didn't fit. So they had to bore out the housing on the guillotine, put the pyro device in there, and basically glued it in or screwed it in, and it didn't really work. And so that's why the balloon's still inflated when we launched the rocket. It was supposed to have been cut down. It should have been falling when we launched the rocket. So it was actually trying to take the balloon down with the rocket, and the rocket didn't go that way. Unlike our SM-1 rocket, went straight up, because the balloon actually did open up before we fired it. But it opened early. So here's the deal. They got through, and they said, before they did all that, they says, you want us to come rescue you? I said, no. Do the mission. That's what we're out here for. We got too much riding on this. Do the mission. So the mechanics back there trying to get the engines going. I'm setting up, this is late in the afternoon. I'm sitting on the bow of the boat in front of the little wheelhouse cabin, watching, and I see a star. I knew that was my balloon. The balloon looked like a star at the distance we were from it. I could see it go up and go over. And I saw two puffs of smoke. I said, wait, it should have been one when that rocket motor fired. I saw two puffs of smoke. It was late in the evening. The first puff was from the motor firing. The second puff was where it separated the rocket solid fuel grain from the oxidizer. The oxidizer had so much pressure, it just kept pushing up, but it didn't have the thrust it would have had it been the full up rocket motor. So yeah, it was 750 psi instead of 1400. It didn't give you 1,400 pounds of thrust. So it went up. It kept going up for a ways, but it didn't have the fins, and so it wasn't spin stabilized, and it came down. And the data tracked the data of the video tracked all the way down to it splashed down in the ocean. Well, the idea was to go get it, but they wasn't going to go get it because the go getting it boat was the one I was on trying to make the com call. So anyway, we're out there in the middle of the ocean floating around. And finally, right about dark, the captain of our little boat says, I got it fixed. You know, he used the two engines and kept piece parting them and going back and forth. He finally got one motor running. So we turned around and aimed south and headed south toward the main boat, or we thought it was. And they were in calm contact. And so the main boat at that point, having done the mission, started coming back toward us. And right about midnight, it was about midnight when I left. And it's about midnight, and I guess now that was Eastern time, so that would have been about an hour ago, 25 years ago. About midnight, we get back to the boat. Now, you know what it's like when you're on a boat and you get on shore and you got these wobbly legs, because, you know, you're used to being at sea where everything's going like this. And on a little boat, it does that a whole lot more than a big boat. Big boat does this. And it happened to you on a big boat going ashore, but a little boat is out here in the chop doing this, and the big boat's just kind of rolling. So it's after midnight. I got up on that main deck, and the first thing I said, because suddenly I had rubber legs, because that boat was a lot more stable than the one I got off of. I'm just wobbling around like a drunk on rubber legs. I said, wow, it's great to be on dry land again. But let me tell you something. That boat was the prettiest sight I ever saw in my life. I felt like I was on an injured spaceship coming into the space station to dock, because it was just a black sea. It was nighttime. The only thing we saw was the lights on that boat. It was a black sea. There was lights on that boat, and boy, I was so happy to see that thing. And well, I mean, I was starving. I was thirsty. Oh, get out! I was about to die of thirst. Somebody threw me a bottle of water as soon as I got on deck, and that was great. But I needed it like really bad, really bad. And I was darn near sick from dehydration, but it was real funny. It just for one, just seeing that boat, I felt like I was on a wayward, injured spaceship heading into the space station. That's just the feeling I had. So when I got on that boat, like I said, the first thing I said is, "Wow, it's great to be on dry land again." As I'm wobbling around trying to get used to my rubber legs. So that's the story on that. That's a story that I don't know if I've told that online or not ever, but that was it. 25 years ago today, that's what we was doing. And we got a comet to celebrate our 25th anniversary. Although we can't sit in the sky like Hellbop, and it's not hitting Jupiter, at least not yet, like Comet Shoemaker Levy 9 did. Actually, Comet Shoemaker Levy 9 was interesting. It broke into 21 principal pieces. The first piece hit Jupiter on the day of the 25th anniversary of the launch of the Apollo 11. The biggest piece hit on the day of the landing, and the last piece hit on the day that it splashed down coming back. Is that weird? Is that weird? 25 years exactly bracketed the mission of Apollo 11. I thought, yeah, this must be some sign from God. And it was named after the finders of the comet, Shoemaker and Levy. And Shoemaker is the guy who trained Apollo astronauts on how to deal with craters and stuff, partly over here in Meteor Crater and some other places. He took those astronauts and trained them about space geology, lunar geology. And later, Shoemaker ashes were sent to the moon, and he impacted in the moon and created his own crater. He was a crater creator with his remains. Is that poetic or what? So, and Hale-Bopp, the comet that's hanging in the sky when we were doing our SL1 mission, was named after two astronomers, one named Hale and one named Bopp. Dr. Hale was coming to our International Space Development Conference. I got to meet him and talk to him at some length. He was a really nice guy, Dr. Hale was. Back then, he was black-headed. I bet he's not now. That's 25 years ago. So, yeah, I met Dr. Hale. Now, the Hale telescope I mentioned in the previous video at Palomar was not named after him, because that was built way before he was born. I don't know if he's connected. Maybe he's connected to whoever that scope was named after. I don't know. Both in astronomy, both named Hale. That's something worth investigating. So H-A-L-E, not H-E-L-L. Hale, not Hale, which was a Nordic god, by the way, which shouldn't be an improper word, since it was, it's considered a cuss word now. But really? It was a Nordic god. This is when God's names become cuss words. Only in perverted English. Alrighty, so I'm going to go back to the video one more time and share it for those latecomers in here, just for y'all's edification. So, hang on. Share screen. Hope I got the right one. Here we are. This is the cat's prize balloon launch part. Let me blow it up here. And then that would be Glen May here. That might be, I think that is Mike, the CEO, Mike Smith, the head engineer for Aerostar. We had these mufflers on the ship. We had the exhaust ducted around so that hot fuel particles will not hit the balloon and put holes in it. So, because sometimes these diesel engines will throw out hot globules of fuel. So we did not want that impacting our very thin mylar balloon. So we had those exhausts ducted around. So they tailored the boat for this mission. This was, again, the Mr. Offshore. It normally worked for the Intercoastal Systems Station, Naval Station, down there around Pensacola. We rented this thing, Panama City. We rented this thing out of Panama City, Florida. The C. Michael Calais, way down in Baton Rouge, not Baton Rouge, way down the very tip of Louisiana. I forget what the name of that town was called there. Anyway, so let's watch this again. Whoop, went the wrong video. Hang on, let's go back. Hey, Glen May's cutting a rope, holding it. That was Steve Mistakes yelling there. Hope it doesn't drop now. Now you understand what he meant. Hope it don't drop now. What's that speed? That would have been Steve Mistakes. I know the ascent speed. He's yelling to the guy in the command center. All right, here it is at altitude. You can see the blackness of space at altitude. It was blue earlier. Just on the verge. There it is. There the rocket goes off to the left. There it goes. Bye-bye. Now, without the way the rocket, the gondola will ascend real fast and the balloon will pop eventually. Even though it's got these vent ducts on the side, it won't be able to handle venting fast enough. So it did pop as it went up. It didn't get caught in that video. Whoops. We don't want that. Stanford University, excuse me. All righty, that's pretty much what I wanted to tell y'all about today and share with you guys, was that 25 years ago today, I was lost at sea, leading the group to launch a balloon launch rocket. So that was quite an experience for all of us. We did have some guys on shore, manning the shore station. Would have been shore stations. That would have been probably Clay. I think Clay Sawyer was on shore. I don't remember. But definitely Tim Pickens, Ronnie LaJoy was on shore. As you mentioned, some of the names that I showed on the boat, Glen May, myself. Well, I was on the boat till I got in the little boat. Bill Brown, David Hewitt, Chase Reniger, Gene. I think Gene Hornbuckle was on that. Gene Young was there. So yeah, we had a couple of Genes. Another guy from New York, what was his name? I can't remember his name off the head. Anyway, he'll come to me later, maybe. It's been 25 years. So 25 years ago, I had my own little space program. Now, how many other YouTubers can claim that? So I was, we did our day. I had a day job. Some of those guys worked for me full time on this. Tim worked for me, Tim Pickens, and he had a brother-in-law that worked on it full time. And a couple other people worked on it. A lot of people worked supporting it. We spent a lot of late nights in the shop, to include Steve's wife at the time. Steve passed away, I mentioned Steve Mistakes. So yeah, we had quite a crew of people, but it was a small group, really, working out of two shops from the time we started the Halo program, altitude liftoff, to the altitude research stuff. And so both continued for a while later. We actually entered the X Prize. that my team that did this rocket motor wound up scaling that technology up. They went up. My team went out and worked for Burt Rutan at Scale Composites for the Spaceship One. And then when Spaceship Two rolled around, some of them stayed around and advised or worked off and on from. Glenn May lost his life when the cold flow test, the Spaceship Two engine went awry. I've got some, I got some complaints. I got a bone to pick with Burt Rutan over that one. He should have known better. I know why. I'm not going to say it here today, but that was a tragic incident. But later it went off to become Virgin Galactic. You know, they bought that stuff out, and Northrop Grumman bought out Scale Composites, and Virgin Galactic basically ran the tourism side with with the Branson. So, but they're having some issues. But we did play a foundational role in space tourism. And a lot of our guys went off. Tim started his own propulsion company called Orion Propulsion. He sold it to Dynetics. Dynetics is still doing rocket work, and they actually bid on one of the three initial lunar lander concepts, which I think theirs was the best. The reason for that: how many times you see something land on the moon, it lands and does this, turns over? You see this all the time: land, fall over, land, fall over, land, fall over. That's because their height to weight ratios is just off the charts. They need to be squat, lower, with bigger legs, kind of like the lunar excursion module. We call it a spider because it had big, long, wide legs. And all these guys had all these reasons. Oh, our lander won't tip over. Our lander's not going to tip over. Boom. Our lander's not going to tip over. Boom. Here's why our lander won't tip over. Boom. Over and over and over and over. And I say the same thing's going to happen with a Starship if you try to land that thing on them. It's going to blast out a big crater and fall over. Even a 1/3 scale module that my friend Bob Zoomer advocated, I think on one of the videos on this channel back probably 4 years ago, I think that would do the same thing, fall over. Now, what even Blue Origins is pretty top heavy. Probably the best concept was the Dynetics concept because it was like a flying bedstead. It was real low slung that would land kind of like that. I think it was a far better idea. They were a little more expensive, so NASA didn't select them, and I think they screwed up. All that said, those guys had a good proposal. So for all that, guys, I've been around the clock. I've been around the horn. I worked on this rocket. I worked on my own rockets like this rocket motor right here. That's the solid fuel grain that we actually test fired. I showed you the picture of. So when I start talking about rockets, I know a little bit about it. Now there's other YouTubers on here that's got space channels. They do a zillion times more stuff than me, and they ain't never put a finger in a rocket or risk their lives trying to get a launch off, which I've done more than once. So I'm lucky to be here. I don't know what I've been preserved for, but for some reason I've been preserved. Maybe it'd be a pickle. I don't know. Have to be a little bit. You have to be a little bit. Yeah. Look, if anything's going to humble you, a rocket program will definitely humble you. You might have a big ego, but once you've had a few things blow up on you, humility creeps in real fast. A rocket program will definitely humble you. But we've had some great successes. We had some great adventures. I worked with a great crew. I thank the world of everybody that worked with me on that project. And I just want to thank them all. Salute to all of those guys who went out there and sweated to make it happen. I mean, they were up all hours for 6 years, basically, putting all this stuff together. And then we actually come up with what we call the Liberator. We're going to go for the X Prize ourselves once our guys come back from working for Burt. We were just a little too late to make it happen because Burt already had a big head start on us. But we actually had better rocket engines than he had. We had two 12,000-pound thrust, where he had one 8,000-pound thrust motor. His was one of these, but we had kerosene LOX, regeneratively cooled liquid injection thrust vector control engines. Two of them. We actually acquired them from Space America, a company that was going in severe difficulty at the time, that Tim Pickens actually designed and built those motors for the most part. So he built them. So Tim's definitely got a lot of rocket motor experience. Steve Mistakis was our rocket motor brain, and I hate we lost him. He was such a good guy. I always call Steve up. Steve, what can we do? What would it take to do this? And boy, he'd come up with an answer. And when it came to the actual launch profiles and working the launch license application, Ronnie LaJoy, he did a lot of heavy lifting on that. And we had a big, thick document we generated for that. And I traveled up to visit the FCC in Washington, no, the FAA, excuse me, the AST office, the FAA, a couple times to get this thing through. And we worked with the FCC. Now, this was a major project. Look at all the avionics we developed. The avionics was the biggest cost item, except for the cutters. The cutters were huge cost to us. And we bought those were official aerospace, you know, line items, and they were the sorriest things we had in the whole system. What we got from the big boy aerospace companies really sucked. Anyway, all right, that's enough of that. I just thought I would share that with y'all. We don't have but 11 people in the house. I guess I bored the crap out of everybody. I don't know what. So please like us, share it. This is just an anniversary date, and a lot of people may not identify with this. But how many other YouTubers with space channels actually did their own space program? Hmm? Name one. Greg Allison with Galactic Gregs and all those guys that work with me. Great team, great team. Absolutely a stunning team of individuals. And many of them went off and did a lot of great things after that. So this was a great training ground for a lot of young guys and girls to cut their teeth on rockets. And we had a blast off, or two or three or four, or many more. Excuse me, guys. All righty, with that, I just want to thank everybody for watching. I don't know, I might go on Green Greg's and add a little bit of video. I don't know, it's too late to throw together a bunch of stuff because I got to get up early in the morning. So I might do just an ad lib meeting over on Green Greg's, but just keep you out for that. So again, thank you everybody for watching, and to one and all a great night. Thank you, mods, for all you're doing. Oh, you know what I should do? Excuse me. I want to check the chat room, and I want to say I already got one donation, so I probably won't get another today. But I'll see who's in the house. I will check my email, make sure I haven't got a donation to another one to my website. Okay. Kim Possible donated on our earlier video today that we did a premiere for. So let me go over here real quick and then check our chat room on the computer, so that probably easier to monitor there. See what people are saying, because I hadn't paid a lot of attention to the chat room, so I need to give it a little attention. Captain Trips, Chewy, New Days, wood stove weather. Yeah, I got I'm going to turn off. I'm getting hot in here. I got my buddy heater burning on low set, and it's got me hot. Yeah, it's a little over 70 degrees in here. For me right now, that's hot, over 70. I'm getting acclimated. Tooth. Oh, what about a tooth? The Watchman. Arnold. Dan TV. I mentioned your Halo record set in Rockoon launched to the amateur radio board net this morning. Someone brought up the topic. Wow, that's cool. Well, we made a lot of news back in the day. Is this Daniel Twit? Yeah, I'm sure it is. Dan TV. All right, I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. LW just went live. What do you ever do other than talk? They look at like exterminating roaches. All right. Don't ever discover anything like the shoemaker comments that doesn't seem like people have a great discovery stay for very long. Well, that was, yeah, it ran into a planet. Made huge. Hey, each piece of that particle, comet, when it hit Jupiter, made big fireballs like the size of Earth. It was incredible to watch. Hey, Deep Function 100,000 minus one. Thank you for saying it's inspiring. I appreciate that. Common man level of compassion for everyone, even though his knowledge base far exceeds his humble. Yeah, you got to stay humble. If you don't stay humble, life will humble you. real fast. Let's see, Greg, happy again. Yeah, I've had some things bothering me today, so, but y'all cheer me up. What can I say? Thank you all for the hearts. Hey, Space Girl, good to see you. Good to see you. So, UCF fighter denounces Trump. Well, who cares what a fighter, an entertainer, a court jockey, I mean, yeah, court jester, as they, all your actors, all these people, entertainment industry, even the news media, I consider them court jesters. Anyway, somebody got me coughing. Probably my buddy Heater over there. Anyway, thank you everyone for watching. Thank you, Mods, for keeping the channel clean. And to one and all, a good night, great day wherever you are. And I got to come back to my main screen. With that, I am going to say